Okay, so I just want to show you what I'm doing trying to get this engine running again. This happens to me all the time. I put ethanol reducer in every fuel tank that I have, or ethanol neutralizer, whatever it is, and I've used all different brands, and I continue to have the same problem. If I put it away and don't drain the fuel out of the bowl of the carburetor and put it away over the winter, and then it sits for 6 months, and then I try to start it. I've been pulling on this for a few minutes. I pulled the plug. It looks, it's a little bit gray. It's not brown. It's not great, but it's fine. It's not carboned up. So the next step is to spray some. So then the next question is the fuel, air, or spark. Those are the three things that will screw you, right? And compression, of course. So is it getting fuel? The tank's full. The bowls might be full, but the jet that goes up into the carburetor that feeds the engine might be plugged. And so I can take that all apart. It takes a few minutes, not a big deal. I do that all the time to these small engines. It's just become a habit now because that's usually the first thing I go for. But sometimes spraying some, checking the spark plug, making sure the air filter is clean, making sure there's fresh gas in, and the oil level's good, blah, blah, blah. The oil level won't affect the starting, of course. But I spray some starting fluid in right here just to see if the engine will run. And if the engine will run, then I know the spark plug's good, the compression's good, the airflow is good, but it's not getting fuel. Okay, so that's pretty simple. There's no fuel petcock on this one, so there's no switch on this one. It's just you're supposed to hold the lever down and start it. There's no choke, so we're going to spray 2 or 3 of those. Okay, so that says it's fuel. So we're going to take apart the bowl. We're going to take the bowl off, take the carburetor apart, and clean the jet and put it back together, and then it should run. Okay. Okay, hopefully I can get these pliers in here. Get that off there. Got a little fuel hose clamp here. Holy cow. That'll keep the fuel from draining out when I disconnect it from the carb. Okay, I could pull the bowl and see if I could pull the jet out, but I think I'm just going to pull the whole carb. All right, so just paying attention to what goes where, what springs go where, what rods go where. Take a picture, a little video, whatever. Let's look at this right here. So just looking down the throat there, it looks clean. The intake looks clean right there where the air intake goes. So let's just pull this off here. Plenty of gas in there, wasn't there? It's all over the ground. Okay, so this is the carburetor bowl. Here's the float, and we can take that out. But there's the jet right there. That gold colored thing, or copper, or whatever, brass thing. I don't know how that one comes out, or if it comes out, but that's most likely what's plugged. That's the narrowest part of the carburetor right there, and that's usually what gets plugged. So what we can do is spray some brake cleaner through it, and brake cleaner should then come out either here, right here, or there. Oh no, it won't come out here because this is the intake. This is where fuel comes in and goes through the little needle there. And the float, of course, is what controls the needle underneath that that's open and closed. So there it's open, it lets fuel in. There it's closed. When it fills up, cuts it off, right? So let's just spray some carb cleaner down there. Okay, I can hear it coming through. Of course, you want to wear your safety glasses if you're doing this. You can see it coming out there. So the jet's clean there. Okay. So that's good. That's probably all it needed. We could take some compressed air and blow it through there. Usually this carburetor cleaner, a few shots of this will dissolve any deposits. It'll dissolve any varnishing. And I bet it's going to run now. The other thing we can check is just to make sure that there's fuel flow here coming out the hose. And there is, so there's no obstruction there. So fuel is getting to there. It's getting to here. Now we just got to make sure it's getting into the bowl. And so what you also want to check is, I'm just going to take this apart so you can see it. So there's the float needle, okay? And that's what goes into that hole. And as the float falls down this direction, the needle here pulls away from its seat and allows fuel to flow into the bowl here. So when it fills up, this is just full of air, so this rises in the level of fluid and it closes, it pushes this jet up inside there and seals off the fuel flow. This can get stuck inside there and keep your fuel from flowing in. So it doesn't hurt to take your carburetor apart and just make sure that that's not stuck. Okay, good enough. This little rod can be a pain in the butt when you're putting it back together though, because it's not captured and it'll slide side to side until you get your float bowl on. Okay, so if you do have a removable jet, sometimes they'll have a little you can put a little hex key in there, or it'll have some kind of fitting that for a slot screwdriver, and you can pull the jet out and clean it and visibly see that it's clean. So here we're just going to make sure there's no dirt around the bowl seal. This is actually pretty clean, or around the gasket there. Make sure that seats up nice and good there. This has a little seal around the brass. Okay, so there's something else that I didn't see before. This has little ports in it as well. Okay, so they're clean now. I don't know what function that has, but let's just make sure it's clean since there's holes in it. Okay. And my engines actually don't just sit like a lot of people do. I'll put them away in September and I don't get them out until June. It's June 15th, or it's middle of June right now. So I only use them for like 3 months and they'll sit for 9 months. So maybe that's just too long. Maybe the ethanol reducer just isn't enough. I probably need to be draining them, draining all the gas out. Another quick trick you can do if you're just trying to see if fuel is getting to the bowl, you can loosen this right here. And there comes gas, okay? So all that tells you though is that gas is getting into the bowl. That doesn't, once it's in the bowl, it still has to go through the jet into the carburetor. As air rushes over the jet, it sucks fuel up through the jet, and if the jet's clogged, even though there's fuel in the bowl, it won't go into the engine. Okay, so pretty simple. Let's just snug this up again. But that is one easy way to drain it. If you want to drain your gas out, put a little funnel or a little V-shaped piece of metal here that can drain into a container. Open that screw right there, loosen it, and just let all the fuel drain out of the tank through there. It'll drain out of the jet as well. Problem is, sometimes the jet will have, it's so small, that jet, the hole in it is so small that fuel will still sit in it even if you drain it. So, and then that'll varnish up and still clog your jet. So that's why most of the time I don't even bother to drain the gas out, because I'm going to end up cleaning the jet anyway. And let's see. Okay. So again, I put this away last September, got it out in June. It doesn't run. Did the air filter get dirty sitting in the shed? No. Did, what do we say? Fuel, air, spark, compression. Did the spark plug suddenly get dirty when it was working when I put it away? No. Did it foul while it was sitting in the shed? No. Did the compression change? Did the rings all of a sudden get worn, or the piston get a crack? I mean, I don't know what could cause lack of compression. Did the head get loose? Did any of that happen when it was running fine? I put away? No. So that just leaves fuel. And so it's almost always fuel if it's been sitting. So an easy thing to do is just take the carburetor apart, clean it, make sure you clean it well, unlike I did, and make sure you reassemble it correctly. And most likely that'll solve your problems of things not starting in the spring. Okay, so that's ethanol neutralized gas in there. There's half a tank. Let's just go through the troubleshooting here. Engine run. All right. So now we've got the air cleaner off. There's the port that allows air to go in. 2 or 3 little shots of starting fluid. Okay, so again, it runs. Is it compression? It seems to run fine, and it ran fine last time I put it away, last September or October, whatever. Is it air? No, there's air filters off, so it's not an air restriction. Is it spark? No, it's sparking and running, so that leaves fuel. So here we are at fuel again, of course. What we're going to do is, the carburetor is probably right behind, it's always right behind the air intake right here. It's usually the shortest path to the carburetor. So we're going to pull these bolts off here, get this off. The other thing we could do real quick is, if there's a carburetor bowl under there, and there is, we could pull that off. There's a screw there, a bolt head there, and there's a bolt head there, and that would pull the carburetor bowl off. We could loosen that and see if we're getting fuel out of it, and that would tell us that the float needle is not stuck if there's fuel in here. If there's no fuel in the bowl, though, the float needle's stuck, and that can happen too just from varnishing. Okay, let's go see. Doink, and then that rod. Okay, so there's the carb. That just has a little rubber O-ring there that keeps it from, oh, my thumb's dirty. So there's fuel in the carburetor somewhere. That's a good sign. This is 7mm. It looks like there's a float bowl drain right there that takes a kind of a hex, whatever. It's pretty big. Okay, a little bit different screw than what we have in the top, so let's keep those separate. Pretty good seal there. Okay, so the bowl was full of fuel. That's not the issue. Okay, again, here's the float. You can see that little rod slid to the side. I'm going to break the whole thing if it doesn't work. Yep, snaps out. Okay. So, a little easier to see now that the float's out of the way. Okay, so this is the jet right here. It looked black earlier when I was trying to look through it. I thought it was like a little hex key. but maybe this will show up in the camera. Now you can start to see something through it. It was completely plugged because I couldn't see through it earlier. So now I'm going to try to hold this where hopefully you'll see fuel flow out that little white nipple we were talking about earlier. So when I spray carb cleaner in there, it comes out in the carburetor. Okay, good. Let's get it back together. So now there's always a slot here for the float needle to go into. Okay, float needle's in the right spot. Nope, it slipped out. I was fumbling around too much. Slide the float needle in there again. Drop it down inside. Try to keep the center this time. Okay, snapped in place. That's good. Got it back together. And I'm not going to spray starting fluid. Let's just see if it starts on its own. The fuel line's unplugged, it's clamped, all the bolts are tight. There's a hose, all the hoses are lined up, all the actuator arms are attached. Okay, so as you can see, in my 30 years of taking small engines apart and cleaning them and trying to get them working again, it almost always works. So fuel, air, spark, compression, those four things, I know that sounds simple. This old mechanic that told me this, man, when I was probably 16 years old, I'm just so fortunate to have guys like that in my life that told me principles like that, not, oh, this is this carburetor and this is how you fix it and this is how it comes apart. These are the things that he said that the engine needs to run. And if you can't rule it out with those things, then you've got to start looking at other systems, computer controls, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what else, because I don't get that deep as a mechanic. So, because I'm not a mechanic. But I just appreciate that so much. So hopefully this helps you guys. If you can't get a small engine running, that's usually just a few things. Some of these carburetors on these real small engines, these little two-strokes like that, and my chainsaws and my gas auger, you can buy if you can't get the carburetor working and you know it's got good compression and it's got air and it's got spark, then just buy a carburetor. I think it was 10 bucks for my, or 15 bucks for my gas auger. I just bought a new carburetor because I can never get it really running right. And man, it runs like a top now with that new carburetor. Brand new fuel lines, brand new fuel filter. It came with the kit for just it was a little over 10 bucks shipped. I can't remember exactly. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do probably with this chainsaw right here. And we were trying to get it to run. We were trying to cut a log. And it just wouldn't run at wide open throttle. So, and it ran fine at 10,000 feet, but I'd forgot my jetting tool and I couldn't jet it. So if those fuel lines are looking bad, I'm just going to buy a whole new carburetor kit, just put a whole new carburetor on it. It's just easier for 10 or 15 bucks, even 20 bucks, if that keeps me from having to buy a new saw. So nice. Anyway, simple principles: fuel, air, spark, compression. Just think about those things, how they get there, where do they get there. And sometimes just your fuel's bad too. Keep that in mind. If the fuel sat for a long time, it's better just, even though there's some in the tank, just get rid of it, put some fresh fuel in, start with fresh fuel, clean the carb, clean the air filter. On these two-stroke engines, and even on these, probably not on these four-strokes as much, but on these two-strokes that are burning oil through the combustion chamber, these exhaust screens will get dirty. And where's the exhaust on this thing? Oh, it's inside there. That's that thing right there. That's that metal thing inside those louvers. So I'd take that apart and clean that and just make sure that it's not clogged, because that can get clogged too. And with carbon and crud, And if you just make sure that's clean, clean air in, going in, plenty exhaust stream coming out, fuel, air, spark, and compression. If your engine's not making compression, if you've done all these things and it's still not running right and it's an old engine, it's probably just worn out. It's time for rings and a piston, or just get a new one. So, okay, anyway, I'm rambling now. Hope this helps you guys. I'm going to get to work.